Hello students, here's another recording, still about experiments because it's one of the bigger or more complex research method. It's also quite common, but this is something that you don't necessarily have to do if you are interested in psychology. But if you will major in psychology, definitely you'll do some form of experiment when you are in university. It can be exciting, can be quite fun, but you must remember that you're doing this for the sake of science, so it has to be very properly made, ethical, standardized, and scientific and statistical, in order to establish or to prove or disprove your hypothesis. Let's begin. Let's look at this relationship between two concepts which we call variables, right? For example, caffeine and memory. We talked about this in class, and this could be interpreted with a research question. Does caffeine or amount of caffeine affect memory, or does having caffeine in your system or in your brain affect your ability to remember stuff, right? So any form of that can be translated into a research question. Just be careful that you don't say coffee here, because there are other products that contain caffeine, but the most common one that we can put in the study or use as a form of beverage would be coffee. So that's actually quite common, because for example, if we use carbonated drinks like Coke Zero or Pepsi, there could be other factors that the respondents might think may be associated to their memory, which is the taste or the carbonated feeling in the mouth, or whatever. So it's simpler to just use simple black coffee, right? Okay, so the very straightforward design that you can do is a 2-by-1 research design, meaning 2 groups, 1 variable. 2 groups, 1 variable. What are the 2 groups? Control group, experimental group. In the control group, let's say, let me put in something here. So 50 respondents or 50 participants are randomly assigned to this group, and they take a memory task or a memory test. We talked about the digit span memory task, right? If you forgot what this is, you can look it up online, what digit span is. All right, it's a form of short-term memory test of numbers. In the other group, experimental group, 100 ml of coffee for the 50 randomly assigned participants. You make them wait for 30 minutes so that it enters their system, their brain, their body, and then they take the memory task. That's about it. And then you measure the score, a number of items correct, and then compare if there's a significant difference between the 2 scores. So for example, the scores in this group, is it the same as the scores in the other group? If they are the same, then coffee does not affect memory. If the effect is this, then coffee improves memory. If the results are this, then coffee decreases or negatively impacts or impedes memory, right? So very simple design. However, there is a question here which will lead us to the placebo study. But before we go there, I'm going ahead of myself. Let's consider another research design, because there is one remaining question, which is, what if it's not just the presence or absence of coffee or caffeine, but the amount of caffeine in your system, right? And assuming that we're keeping the ratio of caffeine to water in the drink. Okay, so let's go here. We now have a new research design. It's 4-by-1, 3 experimental groups. In one group, 200 ml, 100 ml, and then 50 ml. They each rest for 30 minutes. All right, and then take the memory task or memory test afterwards. And of course, there's one control group, so you can compare the scores to the control group. That's your baseline, right? Okay, and then you get the score. So for example, let's say this is 100%, right? And then this is 0. So for the no coffee, they got about this much. All right. For the 50 ml drinkers, not so high, not so different. All right. For the 100 ml, there's a significant increase in our remembering items or numbers in the memory task, and about the same for experimental group number 3. So it seems, according to the results of the study, once it reaches 100 milliliters, the effect of caffeine in your system kicks in. If it's just 50 ml, it's not enough for you to improve or significantly affect your memory ability. All right. So, but this is just an example. You have to do the experiment yourself for you to figure out. All right. Now, another question remains. If you're a critical thinking researcher, you might think, well, what if it's not just caffeine and I have time and energy to do another study, right? What if it's also heart rate or BPM while taking the memory test? Because you read in some paper somewhere, right? If you're doing your review of related literature or research, you encounter this study where it says the faster your heart rate is, the better the better focus, better attention, or better short-term memory you have. So if the effect of caffeine is actually just increasing your heart rate, then maybe we should just measure both, right? So what do I mean? Well, look at this. This is research design number 3. It's now 2x2. By the way, earlier it was 4x1, right? Now it's 2x2, which means 2 independent variables and 2 groups each. What does that mean? 2 independent variables, which is the absence and presence of caffeine in your system while doing the memory task, and then your heart rate. Also 2 groups, fast or regular heart rate. What do I mean? So this is this group right here is fast heart rate, and this is this is heart rate, either fast or average. Let's say fast is 130 to 160 beats per minute. Anything higher than that would be a medical emergency, I guess. And then average would be, I'm not sure, maybe 90 to 120. Let's put it that way, right? Sorry, not medically inclined. All right. So 100 milliliters of coffee or no coffee. So this time we simplified it for the coffee variable. Okay, so because we have 2 independent variables, 2 causes or 2 factors that affect memory with 2 groups each, 2x2, we now have 4 groups. Maybe we can do 25 persons for each group, right? We have 25 persons for each group, which means we need a total of 100 participants in your study. All right. In this group, look carefully. These are the people with a fast heart rate while taking the test and 100 ml coffee. So what do? You make them drink coffee. You check their heart rate. If it is low, you make them do simple exercises like running in place, stretching, jumping jacks. You measure the heart rate. When it reaches 130 to 160, you make them do the memory task. All right? Quite simple, right? Now next, let's look at average heart rate, 100 ml. They drink the coffee, you check the heart rate. If it is within 90 to 120 beats per minute, then you make them take the memory task. All right? Next. Now this is fast heart rate and the memory task. So you make them do simple exercises or just measure their heart rate. Once it becomes 130 to 160 beats per minute, you can make them do the memory task, because this is also the group with no coffee, right? Now, average heart rate and memory task. Why? This is the group for no coffee and also average heart rate. Okay, so you check their heart rate. If it is within 90 to 120, you make them do the memory task. Okay, that's it. You have 4 groups. Now, you find out the results of the study. And what if the results look like this? Let's say this was about 29% items correct. This one is about 40 items correct. 40, and then this one is, let's say, 82% correct. Now, when we had faster heart rate and they also drank coffee, there's a significant increase in the number of items correct in the memory task. Now, it is also much different. The combination effect is different from the respondent just having heart rate. It is also much higher than the group wherein they have an average heart rate but they drank coffee. It is definitely much higher or double than the score or items correct in the memory test compared to the group wherein they had an average heart rate and no coffee. What does that mean? It means that there is what we call an interaction effect. The two independent variables. One moment, let me just write it down. The two independent variables, the presence of coffee, right, and the heart rate, combined in creating a significant increase in memory ability in the digit span test, which means there is an interaction effect. Because look, it's different from just fast heart rate and just 100 ml, but together much better. In other words, when you drink coffee, to make it be more effective when doing a task like studying for the exam, maybe do some stretching first, right? Because the wakefulness effect of the coffee may not kick in. But again, this is just an example, all right? So that's one example, but in the next video, we will talk about the placebo effect and a placebo study. See you in the next video.